Back to TalkNorth.com. Thank you for listening. If you can, please download before you listen. It helps our business. I'd also like to thank our producer, Brandon Morton, and let you know if you'd like to sponsor this program or any of the programs on the network, you can reach me at jsouhan47@gmail.com. All right, we are both longtime Viking watchers. I covered the team back in the 90s and on and off since then. You've been around the team a lot throughout your life and covering the team for The Athletic lately. And here's my view of the whole kicker, punter, holder, snapper imbroglio we're dealing with here. You can take any one of the moves they've made at those positions over the last 5-6 years and say, okay, that made sense. Okay, worth a try. When you put it all together in one big blender and you're still messing around with all these positions halfway through a training camp in what a year that could be really important for the careers of everybody involved, I think it's okay for Viking fans to be a little unsettled.
Yeah, I think so too. And when you look at that triumvirate, if you want to go long snapper, punter, kicker, and then we'll even throw in the holder, so that core group of 4 people, it's a, by nature, very delicate balance that you dedicate not just time during training camp, but during mini camps and during OTAs and all of these things to try and get that group as cohesive as possible, so that in the moment of truth, when you have to make a snap, when you have to make a hold, when you have to make a kick, when you have to make a punt, that is key. That there's not any other outside elements that are factoring into the execution of it other than your ability. And I think that all of this chaos certainly contributes to an unsettled feeling around that group. And then when you add in on top of it all the history that this team has had with failures from that position or group, it's something that people should be biting their fingernails about. Maybe it all works out, maybe it's all fine, but right now, I mean, there's still time, but it's getting late, and it's like they got to get this thing figured out.
He's John Krasinski from The Athletic. I'm Jim Souhan from the Star Tribune. This is the Viking Update Show. We are transitioning as Tim Yoder has left the media business in search of more stable pastures. We're kind of transitioning the show. I thought it'd be fun to have John on because he is covering the Vikings a lot and, of course, has both a fan and a reporter perspective on the hometown team. Check out Jeff Diamond's Vikings and NFL Insider as well. Thanks to our sponsors, Twill and the Edina Galleria, Tony Hoaglund, your State Farm agent in Champlin, and Bite Squad, bitesquad.com, promo code TalkNorth to get your first delivery fee waived. And, I was talking with Diamond about this week, and he said, back in the old days, the Vikings really didn't worry about kickers that much.
Yeah,
they had Jan Stenrud for a long time, Fred Cox for a long time. Even when they had the one, I guess, controversial / time of upheaval was when they brought in Donald Igwebuike. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I covered Donald back then, and there were, he had been accused of certain things. He proclaimed his innocence. He was kind of a fun guy to be around, and he was a good kicker. But that was the first time I felt like the kicking position was just kind of a little in flux. Then they bring Gary Anderson, and Gary Anderson's fantastic and misses the most famous kick in franchise history. And it feels like ever since that miss, nobody has felt good about the position, even when they've had good people at the position.
Yeah, I still remember as a kid watching them, and there was a bit of a revolving door in my early stages, like mid to late 80s into the 90s of watching the team, and it was Iggy, it was Fuad Revez.
Fuad was really good.
Yeah, it was Rich Carlos who was really good. Yep. There were always guys that came in that you felt, okay, maybe you're not watching this guy for 8 years, but you do know that he's going to knock them through. And the one guy I do remember being struggling or being like, ooh, what's going to happen here? I remember Chuck Nelson was another guy from a blast from the past who came up.
I'd forgotten about Chuck.
And extra points were an adventure. Yeah. But in general, through most of, you're right, all the way up through Gary Anderson, there was you felt really confident that whoever they were putting at kicker especially was going to make it. And I think, Jim, when you look at currently where they're at, I don't have an issue with Dan Bailey, I don't think. I mean, I think he's fairly reliable. Is he, Gostkowski or Vinatieri in his prime? Probably not, but I think he's a guy that doesn't make me nervous. So that's why I think my speculation on it is that they have brought in the new guy from Baltimore to be the punter, the kickoff specialist, maybe even if they need a 62-yarder in a desperate situation, maybe he's the guy that tries it. But I think that at the end of the day, when all the dust settles, Matt Weil is going to be out of a job, and the new guy is in, and then what do you do with the holder and all those things? That's still a question mark. But I would be shocked if Dan Bailey has his job in jeopardy.
I agree completely, and I think you even hear that in Zimmer's voice. He's gone out of his way the last few days. We're recording this on Wednesday morning. I was out there yesterday, and you hear in Zimmer's voice, it's like, oh, I like Dan Bailey. I like Dan Bailey. All of a sudden, he's like, because Zimmer doesn't want to give out information, and he wants to act crotchety and like he's difficult, but he'll catch himself and go, oh my God, because I'm trying to be crotchety, I've given people the exact wrong impression, and I've misled them, and that's not a good thing for my team. So now he's like praising Bailey overly to kind of make up for that, which means Wiles is out of a job.
Yeah, it's an interesting dance that he's trying to do here, because he is clearly just trying to do smoke and mirrors with I don't know what Corey is. Is he a kicker or a punter?
Right.
Well, first of all, of course you know. Otherwise, you wouldn't have given up a 5th-round pick for him. Mm-hmm. Secondly, if that's the case and you have a reliable kicker who you haven't really had for a while, and now you're playing mind games with him, that can't be healthy. So I have to imagine, and if they didn't, this would really surprise me, but they've had to have had some sort of private conversation with Bailey saying, look, you're our guy. Just keep doing what you're doing. We believe in you. We're behind you. We need to figure out the punting situation. And I think that would make more sense. But the only way to make the kicking situation worse is to play the mind games like he has done before with kickers here. And I think he hopefully is learning from that and said, you can't do that anymore. This is too important.
Everything in this organization and in all NFL organizations, other than maybe the Patriots, always ends up coming back to the general manager. He's the person with all the power who can fire coaches, who can make every draft pick and all that. But in this case, I don't really blame Spielman, because we know how much Spielman loves his draft picks, even his lower draft picks. He would not have spent 2 draft picks on kickers and a draft pick on a long snapper and a draft pick on a punter if he thought there's any chance of those guys not being his guys. So to me, this all comes down to Zimmer being impatient. And again, any individual move, you can say, okay, that made sense at that time. Like Daniel Carlson. He blows a game for a team with Super Bowl aspirations against their primary rival. He looks like he's not up for the moment. I get why you get rid of him. I guess what I don't get is why you keep spending draft picks on guys if you're willing to give up on them that quickly.
That's to me is the key. If you are going to treat them as expendable, then don't draft them. Just bring in guys off the street and keep running through them, because it looks like Carlson is found good footing in Oakland.
Yep.
He really recovered and had a good finish to last season. I think he's a big part of what they're going to do this year. They feel good about that. And so that to me is when that happens, and when you pull the cord so quickly on a guy like that, and then if he goes and does something better, boy, then you got to look in the mirror a little bit and say, how are we evaluating things? And in fairness to Zim on that point, there's got to be some points where the general manager says no. Mm-hmm. No, we spent draft capital on this guy. We believe in this guy. We're going to stick with him. Now, they tried that with Blair Walsh. They certainly gave him a lot of opportunities. It didn't work out, and they have been validated since, because Blair Walsh is nowhere to be found, really, right?
I think the important aspect, what we really learned about the Blair Walsh story, though, is that he likes school kids.
That's right. That's very important.
All that really matters.
Hugely important.
Yes.
But yeah, so you look at how they manage these things, and that is question. Now, I typically have in the past not gotten overly worried about 5th or 6th or 7th round draft picks because I do think that a lot of them are coin flips at best to happen. So I don't necessarily have a real problem with using those picks later in the rounds as in trying to find your main guy. Like, go for it if you think you can get him. But the amount of resources they've poured into it is very unique. And so you got to start figuring this thing out. Like, there's no way you can bring, Corey in from Baltimore for a 5th round pick and not keep him. And now the question is what do you do? Like, again, it would be too much in my eyes to make this guy the punter and the kicker.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to.
And they're not going to. Yeah. So, all of this subterfuge and stuff, I don't know. And the other thing to bring up off of this is same with McDermott and Cutting as long snapper. If you invest a draft pick in your long snapper, if you like him and you think he's going to be your guy, just make him your guy. And so then he can have all the reps through training camp, through the preseason, to practice and get something down. Same with Corey, who now let's drop the Weil illusion. There should be no punting competition now. Get him in there. Get him punting and kicking, kickoffs and getting as many possible reps as you can get from him because he still is a rookie and he's new to this environment. He's new to this team. He needs to go crash course into what they do here and how to acclimate himself into this thing. And every rep, every snap that Matt Weil takes, in between now and whenever he is let go, is one that Corey does not get to take, and that's to me a concern.
Thanks to Twill and the Edina Galleria, our long-running, most loyal, and primary sponsor of this program, and also the Russo Suhan Show, which is, of course, always been a blast. Scott Dayton Shop in the Edina Galleria, a very friendly place. I go shopping there all the time. Scott does not give me discounts because I don't ask for discounts. I pay full price because the clothes are worth it. I wear them all the time. Golf course, more formal occasions, press boxes, where you can dress like a complete slob, because we know that because we all usually do it. But the only time I'm not dressed like a slob is when I'm wearing Twill stuff. So check out twillmn.com.
Scott, if you want to give me a discount instead of Jim, by all means, just let me know, okay?
We're in negotiations.
Jim usually doesn't like to shop for clothes. I don't like it when he shops for clothes either, because he used to buy stuff I'd want to throw out. That's why I'm so glad he's found Twill in the Edina Galleria. He likes shopping there because of the comfortable environment and the friendly staff. He finds clothes that actually fit him properly and are high-quality brands that will look great for years, whether he's golfing or working. Our favorites so far are Peter Millar, Johnny O, and Barber. We spend our money at Twill because we love the clothes and we love the no-pressure shopping. Drop by Twill in the Edina Galleria for the best shopping experience and best clothes you'll find in the Twin Cities.
One last point about this topic before we move on to other Vikings issues. The one thing you could have done with all those 5th, 6th, 7th round draft picks that you spent on specialists, you could have drafted kind of your project offensive lineman.
Sure.
You've gotten the guy who has the skills but needs to get the weight on, and you can work with them, and maybe now you have more offensive line depth, which might be more important.
Certainly possible. And now they have drafted guys in this 5th, 6th. I remember Jeff Baca a few years ago and a few others that they have tried and it hasn't worked out. Yes, basically every pick that doesn't work in any position is a lost asset that could have been dedicated somewhere else, which, again, and especially when you are doing it with the specialist when not many other teams are. Most other teams are trusting themselves to be able to find these commodities on the open market, either in free agency, undrafted free agency, whatever. That kind of does put you behind the 8 ball, which I think, again, it exacerbates the need to hit on these. I mean, you can't spend a draft pick on a kicker and cut him like 2 weeks into the season. Like that's not a good look. you spend a 7th round pick